Okay.
Hola.
Hi. So before we start, I just want to let you know that I'm gonna be using my phone as a microphone because this morning when I was like preparing my stuff to make this video, the microphone that I had, I broke it, or the cable, I'm not sure, it's not working. So now I'm just gonna be using my phone. Okay, so in case you don't know, booktok is like a niche or community on TikTok that is dedicated to books. Personally, in my For You page, I don't get a lot of TikToks about books, but when I do get them, it's always like a recommendation, like books you should read or my favorite books. Out of all the books I got recommended, I picked out 5, the ones that I saw the most, the ones that caught my attention the most, and I bought them. And I want to kind of make a review on the books of my opinion on them, if I like them or not. These are very popular books, so maybe you, if you're on booktok or if you're like a book person, you have read them. If you haven't, don't worry, because I won't give spoilers about the books. If I do give a spoiler, I'm gonna give you a warning, but I will try to make this whole video without spoiling anything. Also, another thing I want to make clear before we start is that this is my opinion and we can agree to disagree. Another thing I want to make very clear is that I'm not a literature. You see, obviously I can't even pronounce the this word major. I'm not a
literature major.
I am not an English major. I am not a philosophy major. This is not my comfort zone, whatever, right? Like, I'm just reading books as a normal person. I'm not reading books as a professional book critic. I don't know if that's a thing, but just putting that out there. So it's gonna be 5 books. I picked 3 philosophy books and 2 novels. Let's start. Starting off very strong, this one. Hold on, can you see it? There you have it. Friedrich Nietzsche or Nietzsche. It's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. I think I'm saying it right. So before I start giving you my opinion on the book, give you some author and book details, just so we have a better understanding on the book in general and what we are getting ourselves into. Friedrich Nietzsche or Nietzsche was a German philosopher who was born on October 15, 1844. His philosophy is mainly referred as existentialism, and he's most known for his critique on religion and moral. The book is divided in 4 parts. Part 1 and 2 were published in 1883. Part 3 was published in 1884, and part 4 was published in 1885. When this was published, the parts Friedrich Nietzsche was 39, 40, and 41. And the book is not that long, it's 335 pages. So in one sentence, what is the book about? Hermit prophet goes to a cave for 10 years, stays in that cave, gaining knowledge. After 10 years, he decides to come down of the cave and teach the people, teach mankind how to go from being a simple man to the Superman. The writing style of the book feels like the Bible. If you ever read the Bible, you're gonna see what I mean. It's full of poetry, analogies. It feels very theatrical, the way that the characters talk. There's like a lot of overcomplication of the sentences. There's a lot of reading in between the lines. Because of the way that it's written, everybody that reads the book can interpret each line in a different way. And also, this book is considered a novel, but it's also considered a philosophical fiction. Under my categories, I put it under one of the philosophy books. What it was giving, like I said, first one is the Bible. But contrary to the Bible, he's not trying to make you believe in God, because at the beginning of the book, he denies the existence of God. It's not a book dedicated to God. Also, the way that he speaks about mankind gives you the understanding that men created God and not the other way around. It's more like he's trying to make you see the God within you, if that makes sense. The second thing that it was giving very much Sigmund Freud. There's a page where he talks about the self and the ego, and it really reminded me of Sigmund Freud's theory. I don't know if Sigmund Freud took inspiration from Nietzsche to make his work, or if it was Nietzsche that took inspiration from Sigmund Freud, but I see the connection. And the third thing that it was given the Riddler. This dude from the Batman, the Riddle guy.
The Riddler.
Because a lot of the pages, I had to read them twice just to kind of grasp what he was trying to say. There's a lot of like reading in between the lines. It's almost like you need to analyze everything like a riddle. I don't know, it was given that dude. Riddle me this. Now let's talk about lines of the book that stood out to me. Let's start with positive. The chapters, like the whole chapter that I like was Of the Way of the Creator, The Night Song. 2 other chapters that I found interesting to read was Of the Flies of the Marketplace and Of the Virtue That Makes Small. Let's go to the negative. And this is so sad because up to this point, I was really enjoying the book. But then this chapter popped up. It's called Of Old and Young Woman. So disappointing. I understand that this book was written in the 1800s. I get it. And I understand that at that time, men looked down on women. I get it. I understand it. But still, it's so disappointing. I'm gonna read you two lines. Okay, everything about woman is a riddle. And everything about woman has one solution. It's called pregnancy. Girl, this is so disappointing because he could have made the book without this chapter. I don't understand why men always want to say something about women. It's always something to belittle women. And what's more disappointing for me, like still to this era, you have men that think like this. You have men that say wild shit like this. And like I said, I understand that men feel comfortable talking about women in that way because of the time, right? But the men of today have no excuse other than they don't want to respect women. And it's just disappointing. It's just sad. That whole chapter was, I hated it. I wish they would delete it off the book. Another line that stood out to me is this one. That everyone can learn to read will ruin in the long run, not only writing, but thinking too. Ugh. But then the more I kept reading the book, you know how I said earlier that in the book there's a lot of overcomplication of the sentences and whatever. And yeah, I understand that philosophers, this is something that they like to do. Instead of saying something using 3 words, they like to use 15 words just to make it look more professional. I don't know. That's just the philosopher's way. But the more I kept reading the book, I was thinking that it feels like he wrote this book in a complicated way on purpose because he doesn't want just anyone to read the book and understand the book. It's almost as if he wants you to be at a certain level. Does that make sense? Okay, let me simplify it. It's like, imagine him saying, the girls that get it, and the girls that don't. Like, you either get the book or you don't get it. I really think he wanted to filter out who could read his book and who couldn't. Why would he say that everyone can learn to read will ruin in the long run not only writing, but thinking too? Unless he's saying it literally. Damn. But you know, that's just my interpretation of that line. I don't know. Other thing that this is not negative, but it's just like a fun thing that I noticed in the book. He refers to the audience saying brother or my brother. And I couldn't help but imagine him about to drop some knowledge to a multitude of people and starting his sentence with, bro, if you have a virtue and it is your own virtue, you have it in common with no one. Bars. The whole cadence of the sentence feels like that. Should you read this book? If you like philosophy and with all the things that I have said about the book, you are not offended, you find it interesting, and you have the time to read it, go ahead. I must say, I don't want to sound condescending or something, but you should go to the book with some type of life knowledge or life experience. I'm just glad that I picked that book now instead of 6 or 7 years ago, because maybe I wouldn't have understood everything. And to be honest, there's still things that I don't really relate it to. I just couldn't fully understand, and I feel it's because I haven't gone through an experience in life that had helped me to understand that thing on the book. And that's fine. Maybe if I pick up the book again in 5 years, I will look at it in a different way and I will give a different meaning to it. I'm just saying, if you haven't lived life a little bit, maybe don't read it because it's just too existential. Don't read it if you're religious and you're very strict with your religion. My final thoughts on the book. Sometimes the book feels all over the place. I feel that he could have left out that woman chapter and the whole part 4 of the book, and it would have been fine. It would have been a better book, in my opinion. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Did it slay? It slayed. I'm happy that I finally got to read it, and I really want to read more from the author. It slayed. It's a slay. Now let's go to our second book. The second book is this one. I have it in Spanish, but I'm gonna translate it. The Alchemist. This is one of the novels. So Paulo Coelho is a Brazilian novelist, author. born in August 24. The Alchemist was published in 1988 after Coelho wrote it in only 2 weeks. When it was published, it wasn't a success. It only sold 900 copies. And after all this happened, Coelho finds another publishing house who published it again because he really believed in the book and he thought it was going to be a success. So he finds this other publishing house, they publish it again, and it starts to pick up, like it starts to become a success. Coelho was 41 years old when it was published, and the book is 190 pages long. It's short. In one sentence, what is the book about? This shepherd dude, he dreams of a treasure that is hidden in the pyramids on Egypt, and he decides to literally follow that dream. Writing style is easy to comprehend, straight to the point, feels very magical, it feels very dreamy, it feels very hopeful and introspective. It was giving Harry Potter, obviously, because it talks about magic and magical objects and, you know, abracadabra. It was giving a little bit of Avatar: The Last Airbender. You know, it talks about the soul and the inner strength and being in balance and reading the signals of the world. There's one line that reminded me of Walter White. It's page 157. At the top, there's a scene, there's something that happened that it reminded me of Walter White and Hank. Lines of the book that stood out to me is precisely the possibility of realizing your dream, what makes life interesting. The negative about this book, I don't have anything negative to say about this book. Should you read this book? Yes, if you're right now in a place in your life where you're trying to achieve a goal that you have, but you're lacking motivation or you're lacking just that push that you need, this book will be great for you. Don't read it if you don't like happy stories. Final thoughts on the book. I loved it, and I cannot believe it took me this long to read this book, but I am so happy that I read it. Did it slay? Definitely. It slayed. Loved it. Slayed. Yes. This is the third book. Do you see it? Letters from a Stoic. Now let's go into the author and book details. So Lucius Seneca was a Stoic philosopher born in the year 4 before Christ in Spain. The book Letters from a Stoic is a collection of letters that the author wrote to Lucius, to him, who was the procurator of Sicily at the time. The procurator is the person that is in charge of the finances. So these letters, he wrote them at the end of his time, like when he was about to die, after working for the emperor for 10 years. The book, actually, they give you a little bit of an intro, and he was accused in a plot to overthrow the emperor, and he was demanded to commit suicide. Apparently this was a common practice to kind of demand somebody to commit suicide. He was 68 to 69 years old when the letters were wrote, and the book is 213 pages. So in one sentence, what is the book about? So the book is about a lot of things because the author talks about a lot of topics. He tells you, this is life, this is how it works. Do your best to understand it and enjoy it while it lasts, because you're gonna die. That's basically it. What it was giving. So this book was giving us, me as the reader, it was giving like I am nosy. I went through somebody's mail and I'm reading their letter. Because like I said, it's a collection of letters that he sent to another dude. So you feel like you're reading these letters that are not addressed to you, but you're reading them anyway because, you know, there's gossip and you kind of want to know. Also, you always read in Seneca's point of view, so you never know what the other dude responds. So some letters start mid-conversation and you don't know what he's talking about at the beginning, but then he starts talking about whatever topic he decided to talk about, and then you kind of like pick up the conversation. I share with you the chapters that I liked the most. This is called On the Blush of Modesty, page 22. On Philosophy, the Guide of Life, page 29. On Old Age and Death, page 36. On Travel as a Cure for Discontent, page 42. This one is so real. On Quiet and Study, that's page 74. On Facing the World with Confidence, that's page 168. I'm just gonna read you something that pops up. Okay. This one says, Who can endure to be nice in the midst of poverty? I mean, he's so right. Luxuries have condemned us to weakness. Show me a man who is not a slave. One is a slave to lust, another to greed, another to ambition, and all men are slaves to fear. You do not know where death awaits you, so be ready for it everywhere. It's not really a negative thing about the book. It's more of like an inconvenience, but he references a lot of like Plato, Ulysses, Cato, Pythagoras. I don't know how to say it in English. And if you really don't know who he's talking about, maybe you won't understand fully what he's saying. So I think that you should, whenever he mentions one of those people, maybe look them up and see what were they known for, or at least what did they do, just so you can kind of understand why he's mentioning that other person as an example. So you read this book, if you are trying to gain knowledge and gain an understanding about life, kind of understand better situations that happen in life, yes, because even though that this book was written like ages ago, it's still very modern. Like you can still apply it to modern problems. Don't read this book if you already have like your own beliefs about how life should be lived, if you already have your own beliefs about religion, if you already have your own beliefs about death, and you don't want to hear another perspective or another point of view, maybe don't read it. The final thoughts on the book. I really enjoyed reading this book because the author really puts wisdom or being wise in a high pedestal. That is something that I also do. I feel like the top thing you can have or gain in life is knowledge. I really liked his explanation of the soul. I also really liked his talk about death, and I really enjoyed reading his critique about luxury and avarice. And this one, compared to Zarathustra, it's so much more easy to read and so much more easy to comprehend. I enjoyed it a little bit more. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Did it slay? It slayed because it can be an eye-opener for a lot of people. Like, it can help you realize, wow, this is just what life is about. He really don't care if your feelings get hurt. He's giving you a little bit of tough love, in other words. He's very straight to the point, very honest with it, and I really like that. So for me, it's late. Let's continue to the fourth book of this review, is this one. The Stranger by Albert Camus. Just some details about the author and the book. So Albert Camus was a French Algerian philosopher. He was also an author, dramatist, and a novelist. He was born in November 7th, 1913. His philosophy was focused on the absurd. Remember this. Stranger was published in 1942. He was 29, and later in 1957 he won the Nobel Prize for literature. The book is 123 pages long. In one sentence, what is the book about? The book is about a guy that doesn't give a fuck anymore. He doesn't care. If you think you don't care about anything, if you think you're so nonchalant, you don't care, you're wrong. You care. This dude from the book doesn't care. Doesn't give a fuck. That's what the book is about. The writing style for the book is very dry. It's very straight to the point. It's very sharp. It feels a little bit sarcastic. When you're reading it, you feel that you're reading somebody's journal. He thought of something, he wrote it. So honest, and some lines are so out of pocket. What it was giving, it's not that serious. Get over it. But on steroids.
You know what it never was? That serious. It was never that serious. Quite frankly, would never be that serious.
Well, that's life. Well, life happens. So lines of the book that stood out to me. So after I read the book, more TikToks of the book kept popping up. Like, it happens on TikTok. TikTok reads your mind. And I saw this TikTok of this girl saying that the opening line of the book was so shocking. without spoiling it. When you start reading the book, the main character, he's going through a difficult time, to say the least. And we all know that when somebody's going through a difficult time, everyone reacts different way. So when I read the first line of the book, I thought, oh, maybe he's just so full of things to do and his brain is a little bit foggy because he doesn't know how to really react to what happened. Maybe that's why he said that. But then I kept reading the book and I realized, nah, it was like he really didn't care. And it's so, I don't know, like I didn't got it the first time I read it, but then after finishing the book and reading the first line again, I thought, oh, this should have let me know how the book was gonna turn out. And I have some lines that also made me realize, like, oh my God, he doesn't give a fuck. His lips were trembling below a nose dotted with blackheads. Negative things about the book. Not a negative thing about the book itself, but one of the characters, like I really didn't like Raymond. I knew he was gonna bring trouble. I knew he wasn't shit. And I was right. Should you read this book? If you want to grasp and see how the concept of absurdism works, or what is the concept of the absurd, and you want to see how frustrating it can be, yes, read the book. Don't read the book if you're looking for an optimistic or like a hopeful book. If you're looking for a book that makes you feel better, this is not the one for you. This is not the one. Final thoughts on the book. Okay, I'm gonna show you how I felt after reading the book.
What the fuck?
For me, it really breaks my heart when this seems like a reoccurring theme, not only in the book, but some people in real life. When I see people talking about their crushed dreams and how they give up on life and they just don't want to continue with life and, you know, this and that. Whenever I see something like that, it really breaks my heart. It really makes me feel frustrated. The pace of the book was really slow, but steady. It's kind of like low, and then towards the end of the book, climax. It got serious very quickly. My thoughts, I found it so frustrating to read. I'm sorry, but I hate absurdism. I hate it. I don't like it. I saw this TikTok and I know the creator was joking when she said this, but let me show you. I know it's a joke, but really that's how I felt reading the book, because I was like screaming at him like, can you get a fucking grip? Hello? But also I understood his point of view, because, you know, I felt a type of way of giving up on life and not wanting to do nothing more. Like, I get it. But at the same time, when it's not you on the situation, it's somebody else. You're watching somebody else going through that. It's so frustrating to watch, and I hated it. I gave it a 6 out of 10 because he had me stressed out. I'm sorry. It's not a bad book, but it's just the story itself. I was like, ugh. You know, like hyperventilating. Did it slay? It didn't slay. I'm sorry, for me, it didn't slay. I don't like this type of books because I feel like I'm already so existential in my real life that when I read a book or watch a movie, I want to watch something else, something that gets me out of my reality, not something that brings it more, if that makes sense. So for me, didn't slay. Finally, let's talk about the last book on this selection of books is this one, Tao Te Ching. Lao Tzu translates to Old Master. Was born between the 6th and the 4th century before Christ. He's credited with founding the philosophical system and religion of Taoism. Modern day scholars argue that the author of the Tao Te Ching wasn't written by just one man, but is the work created by multiple authors under the name Lao Tzu. The book is 81 pages long, so very, very short. In one sentence, what is the book about? It's about how to live your life in a balanced and harmonious way. The writing style of the book, I would say it's short, simple, and sweet. And I say sweet because even when he talks about death, you don't feel a vibe of sadness or fear in the words. So what it was giving Jin Jiang. The book actually has a chapter called Jin Jiang. Also, it reminded me of, you know, Kung Fu Panda.
You must believe. Master!
That's how it feels. You see how he's very at peace with death and he feels like he completed his cycle. He doesn't fear death. That's how the book feels. It's telling you this is what life is. Death is gonna happen. You shouldn't fear it. Lines of the book that stood out for me. Those who know both their masculine and their feminine sides become fruitful like the valleys of earth. Page 56, it's called Embrace Mystery. The whole poem is very short, as you can see, but the whole poem I really loved. Here I have highlighted, all great achievements have small beginnings. Slay. The negative. It's not only him in this book, but I found that a lot of philosophers like to say things like they don't need material things. They don't need this. They don't need that. But in this book in specifically, he talks about kind of like being okay with what you have. I really don't agree with it because I feel that if you feel that you can do more and if you feel that you can achieve more, go for it. I'm not saying don't be grateful for what you have, right? Always be grateful, but if you feel that you can achieve more and get more, go for it. Also, he says things like don't be clever. Why would he say that? Like, what do you mean don't be clever? He says clever people are difficult to govern. No, maybe he means another thing and I didn't interpret it right, but I kind of like didn't like that. Should you read this book? Yes, you should read it. It's very short. Don't read this book if you already have like your religion and you're kind of strict about it, because Taoism is not only a philosophy but a religion as well. And if you feel that you're betraying your religion because you're reading about other religion, then maybe don't read it. Right from the start, you notice that it's more centered in like spirituality versus the other two books are more centered in like philosophy itself. Something that I've noticed, like Eastern philosophy versus Western philosophy, is that Eastern philosophy seems to be more optimistic or at peace when it comes to death, versus Western philosophy, you feel a certain depression and sadness in their words, almost as if they have accepted that death is a thing that's gonna happen, but they don't want it to happen, just based on what I've seen. Is it a slay? Yes, it's a slay because it's so short. Finalize this video. Out of the 5 books, if I had to recommend only one, it will be this one. It's so good. It's my favorite. Out of the 5, the one I enjoyed the most was this one. Out of the 5 books, 4 of them for me slayed. The only one that didn't slay was The Stranger. That's just my opinion. It's my opinion. Okay, it's my opinion. That's my opinion! So anyway, that's all. If you have any more recommendations that you would like to share with me, go ahead. I will be so very much happy to read your recommendation. See ya!